I figured I'd be dead by 40, so I just kind of wrote off any kind of success. And then it would be over.
Live life, you got to live life. Use your mind to reach new goals. Live life, you got to live life. Use your body to heal your soul. A higher power is inside. It can be a beautiful ride. Create a symphony that will flow. Then your mind will flourish and grow. Live life. How about you live life? Restore yourself and be reborn. Live life. Oh, won't you live life? With faith and hope you will transform. Guide your thoughts to a positive place and change. Bring hope and faith and love to complete the exchange.
I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. I have an older brother who was born 27 months prior to when I was born. My mother quite often would ask my brother to babysit me and care for me while she went to have her hair done or go shopping. And he started being very physical with me and experimental. And at first it was maybe playing doctors, like in the normal sense of things. I remember seemingly being so close to him that it didn't feel comfortable. Then there became a time where he started being more intimate. So I believe it started with touching and a little kissing. And eventually, for several years, he taught me to do things for him. We were intimate for many years. Growing up was so dysfunctional for me. I know that as an adult now. When I was in 3rd grade, we moved from the house I was born in to the housing project, new homes, and we were sort of one that there was nobody around us. And he was babysitting me, so there was that sense of power for him and isolation for me. And he took that to several levels. My father was not around a lot. He was a traveling salesperson and traveled extensively. He'd leave for a few days, come back, we'd get in trouble, then it was nice, then he'd leave. And I'm not sure that my mother and father liked each other very much. It didn't seem so. My mother and my brother were in cahoots. That's how it felt. It was 2 against 1. Everybody around us in those days, and I think even if I were to report it, what went on in your home was your family's business. Once I threw a shoe at him and it went through the door, and I got in so much trouble that even the defensive ways that I had needed to be altered. And I started withdrawing more and more. I don't know that the advances or the hitting or the arguing or the more intimate things that were happening meant anything to me. I think that's where I started not to care about myself. By the time I was a teenager, I knew that alcohol worked. I couldn't wait to get my hands on it at any time that I could. Alcohol and cigarettes were very, very accepted. Our incest relationship had ended when he discovered he could have other girls. So during our late teens, actually 15, 16, it stopped. I learned about sex, especially giving great blowjobs, from practicing everything my brother asked me to do. quite distorted life. When we stopped having sexual relationships, my life was, and still is, I imagine, pretty distorted in that area.
The two parts of the mind represent the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. The conscious mind actually possesses our wishes, our desires, and our aspirations. And this is also the mind that represents positive thinking. But the subconscious mind is downloaded with programs. The most fundamental programs in the subconscious mind are actually not even ours. They were downloaded by observing our family, our parents, and our community during the first 6 years of our lives.
I looked good on the outside. Nobody really knew. So I could hold down a job, but never for very long. I couldn't stay in school longer than 2 years because I couldn't stick to anything.
95% of the life that we create is actually not necessarily coming from us, but coming from the programs we were downloaded with as children. And unfortunately, because the subconscious by definition operates below consciousness, most of us are totally unaware when we start playing behaviors from the subconscious mind that are actually self-sabotaging or undermining or disempowering who we are.
I continually knew intellectually that there was something really not right, and that I couldn't connect like a normal person to anything. And I would just flip from one dramatic thing to another, and in an extreme way. So there was nothing normal, and a lot of things just kept going wrong, and I felt like I had no control of my life over even my own actions and speech and thoughts. And
one of the things I've learned from my life and my work is that in some ways we've all had some suboptimal experiences as infants and children. We've all suffered, we've all been traumatized. And what happens is that these emotional memories get stored within our body. And we can't really make a distinction between our internal chemicals and the memories that they're holding and creating and the external drugs that we take to relieve the pain.
I knew I was an alcoholic when I got to college because I didn't drink like other people. I always blacked out. There was a very stocked bar in our house, so alcohol was very available. I think I was drinking vodka when I was very little.
The Jesuits are very proud and they boast, "Give me a child until it's 6 or 7, and it will belong to the church for the rest of their lives." What did they know? They knew that if I can get the first 6 years of programming, I will program your subconscious behaviors to the extent that no matter what your conscious mind's wishes and desires are, you will manifest those subconscious programs as an expression of your life.
I became suicidal and stayed that way most of my younger years, and until I started some recovery work that eventually I was willing to do after all kinds of things went wrong. And on May 18th, 1988, I stopped drinking and smoking marijuana. In 1991, my father passed away, and I was sober and had made amends and thinking I was getting better. My dad had left me a little money, so I bought a house. It was very grown up, and it was, I thought, the start of really beginning to have a life. In that house, a stranger appeared on August 27th, 1992, and stayed for 2.5 hours and raped and robbed and burgled and beat me up, and it altered my life. I thought, God knew I'd been abused, so we'll just keep her that way. Most of my imagination was that there was some God or higher or something that had me on strings, and well, I was a puppet, and everybody around me could use me for whatever they wanted. And although I didn't want to drink or use ever again or smoke, because I didn't do that, I believe I went out of my body completely. I just stopped being in my body. And eventually at the end of 1992, I was so suicidal that my rape crisis counselor decided to commit me to be institutionalized. And I stayed in the institution for 30 days. I think the minute I left my body, the night of the rape, it set up for more bad things to happen. Although it took several years, in 1999 I was diagnosed with breast cancer on my right side.
10% or less of all illness that affects humans on this planet is related to a biological insufficiency or a problem with our genetics. The significance is 90% of illness on this planet is not due to a biological source. It's actually due to the way we are living in the world, responding to the world around us, and the thoughts that we have. So it becomes important for us to recognize that illness is something that we create, but not actually thrust upon us by our biology.
I had abused my body so much with what I put in it. It had been abused by other people so much that I couldn't get back in it. And it was a great setup for cells to not work right. I'm pretty sure I had a lot to do with it, and the nature of my life had a lot to do with that happening.
The mind interprets the environment, and through that interpretation induces the brain to release different neuropeptides. And when these neuropeptides are released into the blood, they control the genetics and behavior of the cells in our body. As you change your mind, you change your culture medium, blood, which in turn changes the fate of your cells. So your mind can cause illness, and your mind can also cause healing.
I started chemotherapy and then 7.5 weeks of radiation. I had to take time off work because I couldn't remember my name under chemotherapy. It really affected me. And of course, all the physical ramifications of not feeling very well and gaining a lot of steroid weight and being completely bald. And by then, I'd gotten enough help to think my life was worth saving, and absolutely just dove in and did what I could. I was diagnosed again with brand new cancer. They said it had nothing to do with the cancer on my right side in 2004. That was also found through mammogram, and I did not have to have chemotherapy, just 7.5 weeks of radiation. After I got diagnosed, I had heard from someone that being in your body and being supportive was a good thing. I couldn't imagine being inside my body again. After the rape and after the incest and after being sick, I didn't even like really who I was and how it all turned out. And yet I was struggling to keep going and supporting myself. And I thought, wow, that's not invasive. It'd be easy to learn. I might as well try it. Just went for my first guided imagery.
Much of how we behave in response to the things that we experience in the world is the result of learned behaviors. Those behaviors are present in the mind as what we call images, and we can change the physical behaviors of our body through changing those stored images that are in our minds. So take a moment and...
It took me through a wonderful, wonderful guided imagery where I actually picked my safe and wonderful place. Come to find out, that's really so useful in all guided imagery and all hypnosis, and I really didn't know we were going to be learning such a valuable thing.
When you want to get in touch with who you are, with the deeper levels of your being, what kind of image do you use?
It's beautiful green grass, a little dewy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's towels and blankets around,
Mm-hmm.
pets and little kids running and sitting, and ducks in the pond, and butterflies. It's just very natural and very sun-drenched except for the forest, so there's a place you can go when you don't want to be playing and frolicking. Just the most calm, beautiful place I could ever imagine. And that I didn't have a God of my choosing. So we created the image of this higher power person that I could turn to. A very beautiful, flowing woman. And she lives in a big, giant bubble that's very clear. You can see out, people can see in. And she picks me up in that. It has become the most sanctified area of my brain, body, everywhere, because maybe women in my life growing up were so not there for me that this is my way of experiencing a woman being there for me regularly, anytime. And we travel to my safe place in the bubble.
There's an old Chinese proverb, unless we change our direction, we'll end up where we're headed. And so unless we do something differently, we'll continue to respond in the future to situations or react the same way we did in the past, even if it could be maladaptive, even if it gets in our way. So what guided imagery can do is give us a way to actually change the way our minds, our bodies, our emotions, and our behaviors respond or react when we're in one or another situation.
I get chills when I think about the first time I saw Dr. Miller's immunoimagery and the cartoon, especially on that teaches you how your body works and maintains itself and fights disease.
We do know that people can alter the constituents of their blood to some degree through their imagination. If a person visualizes eating a candy bar, for instance, their blood sugar will go up. It's not immediately obvious to the immune system that this cancer cell is an invader, and therefore it slips underneath the radar and the cancer gets to grow. In terms of doing imagery, the theory is that what we're doing is communicating with the immune system and suggesting to the immune system that it become more alert. We're saying to it, hey, immune system, there are cancer cells out there. Go look for cells that are different and attack them and eliminate them from the body. So that's really what we're imagining is happening.
I think it changed my life.
When a person has a positive self-image, their immune system is much more responsive. So the outcome, at least, is as if they were speaking to this area of their body.
That in your body stuff that I didn't know has given me more life, more energy, more knowledge, more skills than I ever dreamed of having. Because I learned I had something to say about diseases that I might get, what I put in my body, how it reacted to life as it presented itself. I did not know that at the time. What I can control is my thoughts, my actions, my speech. When I realized through the guided imagery that I was hurting the wrong person, me, I realized that I had responsibility to every cell in my body. And that was a concept I never, ever, ever considered.
When you start to learn that you are creating what's in front of you and take personal responsibility for this creation, then you are free to travel any path that you would like and create anything on this particular planet. And this is the most important message people have to have, because we've all been programmed to be victims of the world in which we live. When it turns out this is totally false, we are the creators and masters of our life.
During the time that I was treating for cancer, I still had an open case about my rape to deal with. It's December 1999, I got a call from the detective and the DA saying to come in. We know through DNA who raped you. And the DA told me, but I made a mistake about when the statute of limitations ended, and we can't prosecute ever because the statute of limitations has already passed. So if you did anything wrong that you could get put away for over 9 years, your statute of limitations was 6 years. So there was nothing defined about rape or sexual assault. I remember just saying, that can't happen ever again. And I spoke to some people that said, we know an assembly person who is going to try to change the statute of limitations. Why don't you get in touch with him? And it took us not very long to have the statute of limitations changed. We wanted mostly to say, when you use DNA, if you store it right, you have it forever. So we wanted to kind of match up the technology with the law. So the new law for sexual assault and rape is, if the DNA is tested within 2 years of the date of the rape, then essentially you have forever to prosecute. The law that we married with that also passed was that a convict, if there was DNA material, could have access to the DNA and have it tested so that they may be exonerated if it's proven. Because of the imagery work, because of the self that I had gotten, I now had that fight in me again. Basically, it was my first really large piece in being of service to a population other than myself. The person who raped me was serving time in California for another rape that he was convicted of in October of 1992, the same year. In California, we have what's called the Sexually Violent Predator Act. What you do is you serve your time, but then you don't get out. Now the Department of Mental Health takes you over as a patient, and you're put in a mental institution. And I found everything I could about the person that raped me, and he did qualify. I worked as hard as I could to find the right departments to call and write, and I think my higher power put all the right people in front of me, because to this day, this person is detained. He's already done his time, but he never got out. I am so public with my story to help other states with DNA laws and with other victims. The statute of limitations in New York is only 5 or 6 years. We also want to do what we did in California, or better, in New York. Through the work that I'm doing in committees and all kinds of contacts now politically, and I've stayed right there in it. There's CalCASA, which is the California Organization Against Sexual Assault. There's a local one in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Commission on Assaults Against Women. I got trained by them for California violence prevention so that I can go to kids at schools and talk about violence prevention without identifying as a survivor. Families of murdered victims, they've asked me to come speak about healing, is it possible? And I will speak about guided imagery and spirituality and what allowed me to be who I am today. I was invited by Texas and several places to go speak. Number one, I'm so grateful to be useful in my life and others. I never was, and I spent most of my life not having one. And so I have discovered that being empowered and empowering others and being taught and teaching others and being an example and being inspirational is my life, is my gift. And I pretty much can turn to anybody I know and their family.